the agenda, approve the minutes. Did anyone have anything to add to the agenda that they wanted to discuss? Let's go ahead and approve the agenda as it is, if everyone's okay with that. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Second.
Sophie, thank you. And then the minutes are there from last meeting. Steph was so kind to watch the video after the fact and make these up, so they looked good to me. But if anyone has any additions or corrections, now would be the time. I think you did a good job of capturing that stuff. Can I get someone to move adoption of the minutes? Thank you, Sophie.
Do you still need a second?
Yes. Okay, good job. Okay. On the record, I see today we have no members of the public. So we'll skip straight to 4.1 and get updates from everyone. I know a couple of you had things that you wanted to let the committee know about. If you don't have anything to say since we last met, that's fine. Whatever you want to talk about related to emergency management. Do you want to go first, Dave?
Sure, I'll go first. So, a few weeks ago we had an ESS meeting, and Carolyn introduced two possibilities, or two ideas that are going to be coming in for the spring. One was spiritual care, and the other one was mentorship for youth and related to ESS. So in that discussion, we further had a meeting that brought my interest in spiritual care, because I work as a counselor, a multi-faith counselor. And so through that discussion, she recommended that I contact John McEwen, who's the one who's going to be doing the presentation and work with us here in Bowen. So I emailed John and asked if he'd be willing to work with us, because the issues on Bowen are a little different. I'm new to Bowen, and my background gives me access to things that are specific to, for instance, Buddhism or Taoism. And so we can speak to, in an event, we can speak to things a little differently.
So John McEwen works for the Salvation Army,
Yeah.
and the course I believe is called Emotional Support and Spiritual, Emotional Care and Spiritual Support, something like that.
Exactly, yeah. So John was really excited. He asked if I could go to Vancouver and work with him, and sort of, help create something that's unique for Bowen Island specifically. So there's two questions as to if you have any thoughts, anything you want to bring up as a concern, or you'd like to include in that you know of. And then there's also, in that, I would love that when we set the timing for the spiritual care, that we then be able to branch out and connect with those in the community that will be able to, support that more. And so the dating of that, just be aware of that. So that was one update. And then the other one, which is also rather sensitive to spiritual care, is I was asked to be involved in a very important event that's going to come to Vancouver. In Buddhism, there are different levels of Buddhism in the world. It's like a pyramid, and the Dalai Lama would be the one who holds the base. At the top, there are two Buddhists who would be the ones who kind of work the world web, you might say, in a different way. And so the highest male is going to be coming to Vancouver, and it'll be the first time it's ever happened that he comes here. And the point is to introduce to the Canadian population the essence of Buddhism, because there's a lot of conflict about what it is, and there's been a lot of concern. So he's going to introduce Buddhism at a base level, at an introductory level for the layperson. And I was asked to help ground that and open that up and support that, which is a really wonderful thing to be given. But also in that, there are two young Tibetan nuns, 19 and 20, who will be brought in to help in attending to a High Buddhist. And I was asked if I would help with that care. And so I thought, what can I do with two young Tibetan nuns? And being a mentor, I thought, I have an idea. Because we were talking about mentorship here on Bowen Island, I thought I would love to ask for support in in creating an event here where I invited them to come to Bowen Island for a weekend, and then maybe through the youth center, invite them to do a talk that would give youth on the island and parents of youth on the island an opportunity to learn a little bit about what this is and how it works from their vantage point.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. But I thought that would be such a fun thing for Bowen to host, and it would dovetail perfectly with spiritual care and the mentorship that we're talking about. So they're going to be coming next week, and they're going to be here for 3 months. So I thought somewhere in January or February. So I'm welcoming any thoughts or any support or protection for that, because it's a delicate one. I want them to be well received. And if it feels like, no, I should just do it in the privacy of my own home, I can do it that way too. But I think it could be something that ESS can protect a little bit, just out of interest. And then give me other thoughts, but I think that's the end of that update.
Did you want to talk about the numbers at all?
We could talk about number 13. So we had another meeting. I think it was very good. We've been involved with inviting community reps on the west side. That's where we started. So we did Bowen Bay. The attendance was small, but we secured 2 really good ones. One is Anne Dingwall, who has been the head of security for Greenpeace for 30 years. And I thought that was a good coup. She was really into taking your minutes. And I'll help with your volunteers. And so that was really an exciting one. And then we did Blue Water, and we secured Mark Pullen, who is an ex-firefighter, but who works at the international level with ESS and works with K9. So he was really gung-ho about inviting himself in as whatever we want to do, as a servant, as a volunteer, and a few other people in that area. So that was probably, the biggest pieces that we gathered last week and talked a bit about what can we do, and I sent you minutes about that. It's just really basic stuff. So now we've got Tunstall Bay, which is going to be gathered by Peter Matthews. He's agreed to gather the people there. And Jane Kellett, who will do Cedar Beach area. So the next couple of weeks, or maybe 3 weeks, we'll be doing just little talks, just gathering people and letting them know, so that when we're ready to gather on a bigger level, at least we'll have some community out, we'll have some reach, we'll have some contact.
That's awesome.
That's correct.
Progress.
And I think we're, like, in my mind, we're aiming for maybe like April, somewhere between March and May, but maybe April for a island-wide NERPS gathering, to actually get everybody together, talk a little bit. So, but we'll see how we progress with this one. Yeah.
Thanks. Thank you.
My only update beyond NERPS is the idea that we might create for Bowen Island a plan for building damage assessment. So that should a large event, earthquake, flood, otherwise happen, that we actually have a plan in place and a prioritization of buildings, those kinds of things. So generally it would be a pretty major event. And this dovetails with this project that I'm working on at the provincial level to create a framework. So I'm hoping we'll kind of work on that. And if anybody has ideas for funding, that we might be able to get a little bit of funding down for that. That would be wonderful. Because it could be that if we can if we have the resources to create a fairly good plan, it could actually dovetail into this project, and Bowen Island could be an example for a small community implementing, taking this framework that I'm working on with this team, and creating our own plan for a small community. So I think that's just sort of an ongoing dialogue we'll be having. But on our car ride home from that course in Chilliwack, we've already listed many of the larger buildings on Bowen, and we'll look at prioritizing. And I think as that progresses, we'll want to get in the fire department and the police, and I'm sure other stakeholders, whether it's this group or a smaller group, and look at what are the buildings that we'll be prioritizing and how we'll think about doing that. And then also training for some damage assessment if we do that. Yeah.
That's great. There's 3 people here to take my notes, right? Yeah, we've had a couple of meetings, I think, since I was at the last meeting here. So we've got quite a bit done. And Jen is also working on has put in the $25,000 grant for ESS. So hopefully that happens in January. Those are our funds.
Oh, the silo we forget.
We've had a few courses that we've all attended, and we're working on some more for training in the next year. We were present at the craft fairs and sold emergency supplies, which also we have, there's an escape two-story ladder if anybody is interested, and the Bowen Building Center is selling it at a cheaper cost for us on Bowen. It's $69.99. Bruce isn't here, but the emergency communications team and ESS are going to be working cross-training together. We're going to train some of the communications people with intro to ESS, and in turn they're going to give us a background of all their communication stuff and how it's working. I went to a workshop in Campbell River. It was excellent, and it was really interesting because their big disaster scare is a flood because of the dam in the Campbell Rivers above them. And when we first went into the workshop, they said, you know, these are the exits and this is what happens in an emergency. You go out this way. Well, realistically, if the dam broke in an earthquake, nobody could get to higher ground because it's all flat. So it was quite interesting. And bring scuba gear with you everywhere. We had a meeting, at our last meeting, we did an exercise in documentation, which was kind of quick, but it went well. And we have one of the fellows, Peter Matthews, that's working with Tess, a little bit with documentation, but he's doing a bunch of it, yes. And that's it. Yeah, everything's going good.
Do you have any idea when the emergency communications team is going to be doing that?
The
training
course,
with the ESS?
probably March or April.
Oh,
Sophie, you want to get in on that?
yes.
Okay.
What's this one?
Intro to ESS.
Okay. Okay. I don't have much to update, but I did a couple of courses. I did the site management course and some of the other ESS courses just to help me with the reception center management. That's about it. To report, I went to a spill response course put on by the Coast Guard. That was very worthwhile. I learned so much. We're going to be looking into getting some equipment. I'm going to try and budget for that in 2018, just for small spills. Some adsorbents. Not absorbent, absorbent. So yeah, you know, it was a really great course, and there's more to be had. This was just the introductory to spills, and there's 3 other courses that Coast Guard gives. So one of them is communications, which one of the courses includes communications, and I'm really interested in that because, for example, when the spill happened in by Vancouver from the big tanker. What was it? Yeah. There was some hysteria, almost, or bordering on hysteria, and what to do and who should do it, and you know, just fear amongst some people, and I didn't really know what I was doing and what I was supposed to communicate out to people. And misinformation, and but it was just really good to realize, that just staying off an oil spill site is really important on a lot of levels. You don't want to grind it further into the substrate. You don't want to pick something up and then put it into a garbage can, and then you have to deal with that and disposal of the garbage can, and anyway, you can just spread. You can make the situation much worse. So that's really all I have to say. I have gone to a couple of the, what is the name of the other committee, Jen?
Executive.
The executive committee, just to offer support and, just where necessary for mapping resources or whatever it be, some corporate support or Parks and Environment departmental support. So that's about it.
At the spill course, did they touch on potential LNG?
Well, they did it. So, Coast Guard, it's a funny one because Coast Guard, well, LNG is not considered a pollutant. So basically, they don't really want to talk at length about LNG, I kind of felt. They said it evaporates so quickly that, I mean, really, yeah, it would be gone or the fireball would happen. And, you know, there might be some aftermath with the tugs or the actual oil that's on the vessel, like the engine oil, right? But as far as the cargo, the LNG cargo, yeah, they don't really have anything to say because they just are under the belief that it's going to escape and it's going to evaporate or it's going to blow up and so it's going to be gone.
One way or the other.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's either nothing or everything, there's just no in between.
Well, for me, there's no update on the new fire hall or the EOC yet. Monday night council meeting, we'll find out some more information regarding land clearing. Along the lines of emergencies, though, we went to the school a few weeks ago from grade 1 to 5 and talked about fire prevention. Had some books to give to the kids regarding fire prevention, had them map out what their house looks like. They drew pictures of the house, escape routes, where to go in emergency, where to safe place, and things like that. So we did that through grade 1 to 5, went to the kindergarten on a smaller scale because they're more interested in looking at the fire equipment than actually listening to us talk, so, which is always fun. They always bring something away regarding fire safety or just safety in general. And for the grades 1 to 5, we have a draw this Friday. All the ones that did a map of their houses brought them in. We'll put them in a big box, and then we're going to be drawing one name for an iPad mini.
Oh, wow.
So it's got and it's not the best
High stakes.
drawing because some of them you can tell either their mom or dad were architects. 'Cause they definitely do that for the kids. So it will just be a random draw, so someone will win an iPad mini this Friday.
Mom and dad just have to use their left hand.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
okay.
it.
Just a reminder me that I was going to say I have nothing to update, but we did, I'm pretty sure we did the lockdown drill, and as far as it refers to ESS would be in case a mass of kids need somewhere to go because we have evacuated them from school for a situation. So it's drill at Bix and at, I guess, all 3 schools. The Montessori, we've also mapped it out. They know what their routine is if they need to evacuate quickly if there's a threat. But yeah, it's every year we have to do it, and it's been done this year. So
What 3 schools were those? 6?
it's Bix, IDLC,
Okay.
and IPS.
And sorry,
And Montessori.
lockdown or evacuation?
A lockdown, which also includes an evacuation, but it's a controlled
Yeah.
evacuation. Because if it happens at lunch, then you have to kind of know, okay, where do we go? Teachers know to take off towards Crippen Park, or towards BCC. If we slowly evacuate classroom by classroom, we say, we escort them out and tell them which way to go and away from the school. Yeah. It's a whole different gamut of things. But yeah, that's been done, and I would imagine if it's in a cold winter, snowy day, that we would be requiring some community assistance on that. Okay.
If ESS has unaccompanied minors, the protocol is to call the Ministry of Children and Family Development, so I don't know, would they be considered unaccompanied? They're not with their parents, but technically they're under the care and control of their teachers or the school broadly, so.
Yeah, there would be a teacher overseeing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it for me.
I think that'd be a good opportunity for ESS to activate if there's ever any reason for the team to assist with anything. It's probably a good idea so that they can practice.
Okay.
So in terms of my update from the municipality, I guess, would just be our launch of the emergency notification system, which was very successful and continues to be very successful. How many do we have now? Like 800?
890 last time I checked.
Wow, that's great. That's
Yeah, we seem
really
to have
good.
sort of stalled though, which I guess is to be expected. Sorry, I don't want to take over.
Oh, no, that's okay. So we launched and we have that many, and we're hoping to continue our promotion of it, getting more people signed up.
Yeah, we had at the Legion, I talked to a lot of people, the Legion
yeah.
Craft Fair, I talked to a lot of people about the
901. Broke that 900 mark. Pretty good.
Very good.
Yeah.
Pretty good.
So you talked about the craft
I
fair.
talked it up quite a bit, and there was probably 5 people that were like, "Oh yeah, we haven't done this yet. We should do it." And
They
took
did.
their little card, and maybe they did. But yeah, I was pretty impressed with that many people showing that level of interest in it.
Mm.
Not like, "Oh yeah, okay, yeah," but
Yeah.
"Oh yeah, we got to do this." And
That's great. We ran into a little hiccup with the advertising of the system. There are all sorts of rules around what you can and can't promise that the SMS part will do. So the text messaging in particular, all kinds of rules. And so the fact that we've even called it an emergency notification system is not acceptable apparently. This is new news to us because the rules seem to keep changing. But you're not allowed to use the word emergency or imply that they are guaranteed to receive a text message in the event of an emergency. And so calling it an emergency notification system does that, and thus we have to change what we call it. So Sophie's really looking forward to rebranding. I think we're actually going to leave
Well, we figure we can leave the logo and branding as is and just take out the word emergency. So it'll just be Bowen Island notification system.
So it'll still say Bowens and have the capital
Yes.
ENS, it just won't make
Because
sense.
BOWE is still in the word Bowen, so yeah, we'll just quietly kind of
And hope nobody
adjust. And if anyone asks why is it like this, which no, I don't know if anyone would care, then we'll just explain.
But what is it, Bowen Island notification system?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was the emergency notification
Yeah.
system.
Yeah.
We're just gonna pull over.
They actually
Yeah, the
they
source.
suggested alerting system,
Oh.
but
that doesn't
Plans.
sound like a word.
yeah,
Just
or event notification system, but I don't know. None of those work for me.
event, somebody might be looking for text about a
Wedding.
dance or a
Party.
party's coming on.
When is the
So play
next?
bingo at the Legion.
When is the next
Where the rules
train
are.
or practice?
Or where they were.
The next test?
Yeah.
Probably not until next May at least.
Once a year.
Yeah. Did anyone hear any feedback about the testing?
Well, actually, I don't know if it's the testing itself, but somebody came up to me and said, I, registered and I'm getting all these notifications. And she said, do you? I said, no, I only had one test. And she said, well, it's coming from ESS, it's coming from that, and it's telling you all these things. So I don't know what, I said I would speak to it.
Yeah, I'll get the information from you afterwards and make sure.
Yeah.
That's the first time
And
I've
I
heard
kept
that.
asking, are you sure it's ESS? Are you sure it's the Bowen notification system? She said, yeah.
Like on her phone?
A lot of texts and so.
Interesting.
That's interesting.
I should find out pamphlets to Roblox.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
And ESS doesn't text anybody. except-
Yeah, ESS hasn't used it, so I think there's some confusion there, but I'll get to the
Yeah,
bottom.
I'll ask her to be more specific if you want, but she was asking me, I really don't want that.
Yeah, of course not.
Yeah.
I don't want anyone to unenroll because
No.
they're confused about where the info's coming from.
Mhm.
While we're on the notification system, what should be our goal in terms of enrollment and when by, how much of the population should we expect to ever have enrolled at the
What are
maximum?
we at the moment? 900 people, and what's the,
I'd say out of roughly 3,000, so we're almost at a third of the population. And I say again 3,000 because that subtracts most of the children under 14 years of age who I assume may be enrolling themselves.
What's
So-
our goal?
Well, yeah, what is our goal? That's the question.
But we've already surpassed most communities, have we
Yes.
not?
Exactly.
But I mean, we have to have some vague goal because we're gonna keep on advertising it. But once we reach that goal, we're not gonna stop.
That's true.
and
Yeah,
so
so
we're
so do we-
3,000 is 3,000 people. I mean,
Yeah.
100% population.
But actually, you know what, something that just occurred to me, because I was emailing it to a friend, it should be in the newcomer's guide. I don't know how often that's revised.
Well, we're just revising the community profile.
Yeah, but just because, I was just thinking,
Oh, the
people move on to
online
Bowen
one?
every year, it's
Right.
never gonna end because there's always new people. coming onto the island, so.
Didn't we talk about that too, to put in the visitors
Yeah.
center?
Mm.
For like people are over here for a week or 2 weeks at a time?
Yeah.
Okay, I think adding it to the newcomers guide is a really good idea, and yeah, taking the brochures down in the summer, I mean, it's not open now, but, to the visitor center.
But yeah, I would think 100% would be like,
That would be our law.
That's a good goal.
Yeah.
I think it's a good goal.
I will
Yeah.
continue to push.
Come and go.
I also think a really good sort of avenue that we haven't explored is talking to the business owners and specifically the tourism business operators. So I would love every B&B to have themselves sign up and every hotel or equivalent.
That could be a really good thing for the mentorship group for the kids,
Okay.
because they could go to all the businesses and do part of that and get credit
Great.
for it.
Yeah,
That would
great.
be really cool.
Okay. So.
Sold.
Yeah, in terms of ongoing promotion of it, I think it's just one of those things that is just kind of constantly worked into the municipal communications calendar, like seasonally, we're talking about snow clearing, we're talking about culverts, we're talking about the emergency notification, or the notification systems. So we could really like push it during maybe May, which is emergency preparedness month, and then October, which is shakeout.
Now, I know that I think Bowen Island has a YouTube channel. Right? Would it be possible to put in like a how-to kind of like as if it's a computer screen, how to sign up?
Yeah,
Um,
possibly.
I'm thinking as to how I don't remember how I signed up,
Yeah.
but that's one thing that is I'm mostly intimidated by. Is like, is it pain? How is it? How do I have to do it? Can you make it simple? I don't know. It just I think that's what's gonna turn off a lot of people. Like, I don't know what it entails and just.
And where the data's going and that kind of thing. Because we did get a little bit of feedback. Some people, maybe just one person who said, well, where is all my personal information going?
Yeah. Why do you need my
Are
line?
you giving it to third parties? And we're like, no.
So it could be talked for us if it was YouTube advertised.
Yeah, the only thing with that is we don't have anyone on staff who has like any kind of video production resources.
Right.
I'm sure.
So we can
you
upload a
could reach
video.
out to the community. Probably.
Yeah. We can upload a video to YouTube, no problem, but producing a video?
If it ever comes, somebody just
Yeah.
that's the one things.
Yeah.
It has been really effective signing people up. A lot of people just
Right.
can't be bothered. And so, being at these community events with a computer has been,
Yeah.
quite effective. It's just really labor intensive,
And what's the threshold for sending out a notification? Like you were saying stuff about snow clearing and stuff, is that the two? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking, it's like a major thing, so.
Oh, I think what Sophie was saying was we're sending these regular notices in terms of here's what we're doing with the snow plowing and here's what
Right,
we're
yeah,
doing.
email communications or
Yeah,
whatever.
just
that you would
general,
add in the
you know.
emergency one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or sorry, not the emergency one.
Yeah, not emergency notifications. We did create a policy around the use of the system, and that was passed by council. So it's still got to be kind of vague, but it does talk about the threshold and when we will use it and what the criteria should be. Is there a better way of getting, or a way of getting this information to people that would be just as fast? Is there some sort of action? So I can share that policy with this group.
Sure, I was just curious, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fairly high, it's
Yeah.
not snow clearing or,
No.
the
It's
tree down
life-threatening.
on Adams, yeah.
And just based on the test, like how robust the messaging was, like I know like my own partner was like, why did I get 3 phone calls? And like, you have to accept.
Yeah.
So like you wouldn't want that with fairly mundane stuff
Yeah.
because it would just drive people nuts.
Yeah.
They're like, I get it, you're snow clearing.
Yeah, so we tried to capture some of that because there was talk of using it for more routine things, and yeah, we were sort of against that because I thought it would decrease enrollment.
I would surely enroll.
Yeah, yeah. So really, if there's any other way of getting the information to people in a timely fashion, we'll use it. At least as long as I'm around.
The other thing is it actually operates on a credit system as well, so each message that's sent, unless it's email, which is free, there's credits used, and then we have 10,000 credits per year, so it's, if you go over that, you end up paying more for the system, which in a real emergency would be recoverable through the NBC, so that's not a big deal.
Yeah, if we have a task number, that can be covered. Okay, I'll really quickly do my update. Sorry, were you?
I'm done. Yeah.
This is taking a while. So, as I think Carolyn mentioned, Carolyn, Denise, Robin, Bruce, and myself went to a 2-day leadership training course in Chippewa, of all places, and that was it was a good refresher for me in terms of leadership knowledge and skills, and it was also, I think, a good team building exercise. So I'm hoping that we can send more of our volunteers to that next year, because Tess has already expressed some interest, as well as some of the other volunteers, and it was a really useful course. So that happened. In January, oh gosh, I should find this date. There is a community safety event happening, so some of you already are aware of this, but for those of you who aren't, on January the 21st, from 12 to 2, it was actually started by the AED folks, so Amanda Occhion and Rotary Club are really interested in doing a mass AED training event where they can train a ton of members of the public all at once, because they've actually installed a few AEDs and haven't done the sort of coffee house training. So usually what they do is install the AED, for instance, in Blue Water, and then Bond calls it a coffee house, where they have a bunch of neighbors and people in the vicinity of the AED come over and learn how to use it. So they've placed a couple in populated areas, so Kate's Village Square, that's called, as well as Artisan Square, and not done the corresponding training. So this is how they're going to try and capture all of those people that live and work around those AEDs, but it's really open to anyone in the community who wants to get some free first aid. So that's happening, and then I have said that I will be there, as well as hopefully representatives from ESS and the NERPS and the Emergency Communications team, and then I think police and fire are looking at getting involved. So we're going to try and spread the word, but definitely spread that through your networks as you can, and just a heads up that it's happening. Moving swiftly forward, that $25,000 grant that was referenced earlier was for ESS, but hopefully there's a trickle-down effect in that the money... What's that?
The trickle down.
Give us some money, is it?
Mine.
Hopefully there'll be a trickle-down. So it's not a cash influx, it's for very specific items. We had to itemize and request individually everything we wanted, so that's been sent to them. I'm hopeful we find out at the end of January. And again, while most of that money is specifically for ESS, hopefully it frees up some room in the budget for things that were being spent on ESS to move around elsewhere. So yeah, really excited. There's also an EOC grant for $25,000 coming up soon, but I got the impression from the Fire Hall Facility Steering Committee that that money was already sort of earmarked, if you will, for a generator for that facility. So I have to confirm that by email, because I don't think they meet soon enough. Anyway, I'm working on that, but there's hopefully more money coming. Fingers crossed. Next topic, Bonnie and I did attend that basic oil spill response course, which was really interesting. I would love to send more staff, particularly from Parks and Environment or volunteers from the fire department, to that, because it was really valuable. We also had a meeting where the Ministry of Environment, Environmental Emergency Response officers came over with the Coast Guard to chat with us about sort of roles and responsibilities and yeah, what they can and can't offer. So I think that was really fruitful. It was good to put faces to the names. This is sort of one of the emergencies we've actually experienced on Bowen, so it's been on my radar since I started. And I'm still working with Bonnie on not only getting equipment, but also training so that the staff would know how to use it. And then training around communications as well. So I'm working on that. The Community Wildfire Protection Plan was discussed at the executive committee level. That's part of what Bonnie was talking about. The Parks and Environment Department has some expertise in that area that the executive committee wanted to have that input. So the decision or the outcome at that meeting was that the wildfire protection plan should be updated, not by us, I'll be pleased to know. So that needs to be done by a forestry professional. And I'm looking now at what sort of funding opportunities are available for that. The funding program that existed is in the process of being revamped. So I thought that there was money available, and now it may not be the case. So I'm waiting to find out more about the wildfire protection plan. And then just to follow up, sorry, I'm just jumping all over the place here, on something that came up out of the last meeting. So we had talked about the standard that the community center was being built to. And so I emailed, the people involved in that, and I'm not 100% sure of what this response was. So basically, he said that he's confident that his design team will provide a compliant solution, and that's it. So what I think I'll do is forward you the email thread and see sort of with your expertise if you can.
If we need to push a little harder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so at first it was, we're not in the stage to deal with this yet, which I thought was interesting, and then when I followed up later, it was, oh, it'll be fine, don't worry. So it says, when we have the team poised to answer your questions, we will provide feedback as we discuss the detailed design development. So it may be the case that they're just not at that stage yet. I'm not 100% sure. But I just wanted to let the committee know that I did follow up on that. And we'll see where it goes. So I think those are my updates. I've been up to a little bit more, but that's all the relevant bits and pieces. Okay. Thanks, everyone. Oh, yes, 5.1. So, I'm not sure how many people are familiar with these disaster support hubs. This came out of Vancouver's earthquake response plan. As you know, Bowen doesn't have an earthquake-specific response plan. I'm not certain that we need one. I mean, we're probably not at the stage where we are drafting one, even if we do think it's something that we want. Because as I have probably mentioned at every meeting, I am a big proponent of an evacuation plan for Bowen, and I'd like to, I think, see that done before an earthquake-specific plan, because we already have an an all-hazards response plan. So whether or not we need one specific to earthquakes at this point, I'm not sure. We still have to update that all-hazards plan first as well, and that should be done first. So in the interim, in the absence of an earthquake response plan, are we interested in disaster support hubs? And this came up, Sophie may be better able to speak to it, as the result of a media inquiry.
Yeah, so I got an email from someone, I can't quite remember the outlet, but it's like a blog type media.
BuzzFeed or...
Yeah.
I'd heard of it.
Yeah. But anyway, they were updating their information and what they were writing a story on Metro Vancouver's disaster support hubs, and they wanted to know ours. And
so I'm not sure if anyone got a chance to click on the link, but basically, as we've sort of espoused and told the community every chance we get, first responders are going to be busy post-earthquake and likely not able to get to you for potentially days. So what a disaster response hub is supposed to be is a place for community members to meet, to share information and resources, and to coordinate, their community response. So it's somewhere that, certainly in Vancouver and here, if we did it on Bowen, we would prioritize making sure information got to those locations so that people who are looking for information, official information, would be able to go there to find it. But it's also, and I think it really ties into the NERFs, because it's where people would go to try and connect with each other and find out, who has a generator or who has more food or water, like basic needs, while they wait for, their road to be cleared or their...
Would that be a muster station?
Well, so
is that what we would call them?
My understanding of a muster station is that that's where you would meet prior to evacuating, or meet after you've evacuated a building. So I don't think that that's quite the same.
Yeah, I think this is one thing I envisioned exactly for the NERFs, is that if we can have a strong establishment in each neighborhood of a lead person to lead NERFs in that neighborhood, that whether it's their physical home or whether it's another location that we choose, that they would be that center for information in an island-wide event. Yeah, so does that align with what you were?
Yeah, we haven't talked about it because you don't really have the grounding yet, but
Yeah.
I think we can start maybe considering what you're saying now and see, I don't know, do we need to do it now or do you want to do it later?
I just wanted to throw this on the table.
Yeah.
We don't have to.
And I see, it's interesting, there's two things, because I'm pretty sure City of Vancouver, this is like the public phase, so this is for the public to come. And then I know they also have on the back end for staff and formal volunteers, they have 6, and I don't know, I can't remember what they call them, but 6 containers, locations that aren't for the public. The public aren't supposed to go to those, it's for staff members and volunteers, but that's where they keep their damage assessment materials and other things. I think they have satellite radios or phones and all sorts of emergency supplies. I think that's probably overkill for what we need, but it's like something we could consider. I think being a small community, we might be able to combine those things. So, and I see this as being long-term, like not next year, but maybe it's in a grant application, right? If we create a plan that in however many neighborhoods or corners of the island, we think, hey, what if we got like a really small container or a small storage thing of some kind, and that has a tent in it, that has a table and some chairs, that has whatever, some supplies in it, that we think if neighborhoods are cut off and it is an island-wide thing, that can be where this support hub is, and it also maybe has materials for emergency responders. I don't know. Again, it's kind of a big thing. It might be overkill for a little island, but I think it's worth thinking about and planning for.
And in my mind, these, if we were to implement or establish 1 or 2 or 8 on, I think 8 would be overkill, on Bowen, there won't be any cache of supplies there waiting for you. That's the whole point, is that you go there to sort of coordinate who has what. But what you're sort of speaking to is part of like a staff earthquake response plan, which Bowen doesn't have and needs to have. You know, if I'm a staff member and I wasn't working today, should I go to work? Shouldn't I? So all of that needs to be hashed out at the municipal level as well.
Yeah.
So this, to my mind, is very much a public information. It's for the public. And really the municipality, like I said, would just prioritize getting information to those hubs so that people can find out what's going on.
And Bruce, I can remember looking at a map that he had of all his communication people, and I think they're situated all around the island, so that's,
Yes, it would tie into that.
tie into that.
Absolutely. Because if electricity's out or cell phones are down or whatever,
Yeah, they
we could
all
have
their
them go
stuff.
to these, disaster support hubs at certain times of day to relay messages or whatever.
It could be good to link that information with our information so that whoever the NERP is could have that kind of grounding and contact in those areas. And then also linking it with the idea of what you just said, a hub location that is, so we have that ourselves as a structure.
Yeah. So in answer to your question, yes, I do think, I would say yes, it is something worth exploring and defining what is it for Bowen and what does it mean for Bowen. Yeah.
First responders? What do you guys think?
Yeah, no, I think it's a good idea. Well, the school has one, but it's more for the school kids. If something happened, they've got water supplies in there and tents and blankets and first aid kits and stuff like that. And it's in a sea can right out on the field. So if they can't get into the school or the school's damaged in an earthquake, at least they've got some supplies on site. So those could be located in different areas. So I'd say maybe not for, food, water, whatever else, but more for the people that are going to be running the whole kind of show. So they have at least got a home base or something. So.
Yeah, I think that they're great. I don't know if we want to have too many, and we want to also make sure that we're not plotting too many different things around the island. So maybe shared with a strategic location where there's currently an AED, or like you said, the communication people, just so it's not too confusing for everybody. So hold on, what am I doing here? No, this is the evacuation zone.
Yeah.
So that's why not too many.
I mean, we could even just have one to start. You can make it to the go. It doesn't, because we have so many terminating roads, it's,
Like east side, west side, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that would be part of picking the neighborhoods, like, because, Hood Point, Blue Water, are pretty isolated, golf course, Town Point, who's going to be sort of most isolated if there was damage.
Yeah, for Vancouver, they don't have that many, 25 for so many people.
Yeah.
yes.
Right, so I think 2 or 3 here.
They have ability to go other places too,
True.
which we don't have on Bowen.
Well, I think what's come out of this for me is that the NERPS and emergency communication team should talk and coordinate and make sure that those ECT members are involved with the NERPs in their neighborhood. And maybe through a discussion with that team, we can figure out what a logical location is. Now, I wouldn't want to base them all, based on where team members live, because obviously they change or can change. And some things are a little bit more obvious. Like I think Hood Point sort of seems like an obvious one, but
I think that's great. I'm gonna let Bruce know of our meeting times, and those people who are in those areas can maybe come to the NERD meetings and just introduce themselves as the ECT. It's gonna be
maybe we'll just talk for 5 minutes about what they can do in an emergency.
And that's,
Yeah, and they could be invited to our island-wide campaign as well.
Okay. Well, I don't know. I don't think we want to pass this resolution. I just feel like we discussed it. Do we want to send it up to the executive committee? Do we feel like we know enough about it? Do you want me to hash out in writing, exactly what this might look like and where we might think they would be? We can discuss that at the next meeting and then have a recommendation.
Yeah, we should define them first.
Okay.
And we don't want to confuse them with what are those called? We go in
Oh, the muster.
reception.
Oh, reception centers.
Reception
Yeah.
centers and/or staff resource areas.
You know what might be neat, like I wonder if next meeting, maybe it's too much, could we get like a map and like maybe during the meeting, like we could say, okay, like,
Everything that we
yeah, like
have.
fill it in, like start to just as with our collective intelligence.
I like that.
Okay, we've got some people here, we've got some people here, this one might be, so that, and we could just use Post-its and say, okay, well, how would it look if we did them in these neighborhoods? Okay, there's 6, that's too many. How would it look in these neighborhoods, and kind of make it a bit interactive next session?
Yep. So
And then it cuts your workload, so we actually do it together, and then, well, and then you're not doing it in isolation. We can kind of do it collectively, and then.
Yeah, we could label all the reception
We have
centers.
a couple
Yeah.
of laminated maps and
Yeah,
PDFs.
I think that'd be kind of fun. Good exercise.
We've also got some black and white ones that we could actually mark up,
Yeah.
just simple.
Okay, we'll continue to discuss this. in January.
Anything I can do to bring in like Post-its. and
Yeah.
interactive stuff into a meeting.
Sounds
makes it
like
fun.
coordinate.
Pointing and writing and
Yeah.
Okay. Hold off on that. Hopefully, moving swiftly on to 5.2. Hopefully everyone got a chance to look at this HRVA, or the part that's here. Basically, I had hoped that the whole thing would be completed by now. Unfortunately, various other issues came up, and I didn't quite get it done. So this is every section with the exception of the last one that we were working on most recently. So this is the bulk of it, basically. And if we can approve this today, I hope, then the rest can be approved in January, and the thing can go to the executive committee by their next meeting in January. That is my hope. Now that brings us to the question of who will be here in January, but I'll get to that. So is everyone comfortable approving this? Did you have a chance to read it?
I apologize.
So in light of that, I guess what I wanted to do was sort of break it up so that it wasn't 70 pages of reading on one agenda. That being said, I can do that, so you have this part. If you could make sure that you read it in the next sort of week or so, then the following one, maybe I can even get it to them earlier, because if it's in January, the first week of January, I might be trying to cram too much in. What can I do here? Like get approval via email from the committee members as they read it?
You can do that.
You don't recommend it?
No, you can do that. Sure. But what about the January? Why don't we do, and then if you could just send out an early agenda anyway, so it's the holidays.
Okay.
If you can get it done before.
Yeah.
Do you all notice that the emergency support services, the name has changed? We're going to be changing it instead of emergency social services. It's on the almost the last page.
So yeah, while we're sitting here looking at it, maybe I'll just take you through a little bit of what's changed. A lot of what I did in the introduction was remove text. It was very verbose and wordy, so I tried to consolidate some of the introduction information in the overview of hazards, so page 14 and 35, I made sure that these hazards that are listed and defined here are the same ones as what's in the matrix at the back of the HRBA. So we had a lot of hazards defined here that weren't hazards for Bowen, and we had hazards for Bowen in our matrix that weren't defined. So that's what I did with the overview of hazards, just aligned those. Page 17, the Bowen Island Municipality overview is very much the same as it was. I didn't even change that picture. If anyone has a better picture, I'd be happy to incorporate that. We talked a lot about vulnerability already, so I don't need to do this to death, but basically I elaborated on 4 types of vulnerability instead of just the 2 that were there. And then updated the response and recovery facilities information. Critical infrastructure, so sorry guys, I'm racing through this. On page 21, the 10 different types of critical infrastructure, I think they'd only expanded upon 2 in the previous HRBA. So I talked about all of these with the exception of manufacturing. If anyone can correct me here, to my knowledge, there is no manufacturing happening on Bowens. The examples were furniture, glass, and truck canopies. Is there any sort of large manufacturing happening on Bowen that I'm not aware of? If there is, let me know. Anyway, otherwise,
Yeah,
No large. There's
small
certainly,
yeah, artisans.
yeah.
So 1 through 9. This is on page 21. I talked about on Bowen. And this is where everyone's input is useful and welcome, because everyone I've spoken to had a little bit of something to add or correct or whatever. So we talk about fuel storage in various locations, what we can and can't access without power. We talk about telecommunications. Actually, I should change that to just communications. Finance, healthcare, anyway, I don't need to read them out to you. So, elaborated extensively on the vulnerabilities. Again, you guys would have seen some of this before, but this is sort of a final draft. And then we get into section 4 on page 28, which is response organizations. And that's really Ian and Paulo and Sherry when she is back, that I'm hoping will just confirm they're comfortable with. I also spoke to North Shore Search and Rescue and got that section updated. And then made some changes, so now I'm on page 31. I made some changes to the emergency support and preparedness organizations. And again, if you're in one of those departments, please just confirm that what's there is correct. Yeah, emergency social services name changed to emergency support services. And I think I elaborated a little on the expectations of the department. So what would we need Public Works to do? What would we want Parks and Environment to do? And that's it. So the part that you're missing is on the hazards specifically. I'm sure you can recall there were 8 hazards that they talked about at length. So that's the part I'm working on updating. So what works best for everyone in terms of getting this approved and sent to the executive committee? And their meeting is...
I recommend, what just I find works in committee environments for things like this is if you have changes, send them by a certain date.
Okay.
If not, silence is considered consent.
Oh, I love it.
Ooh.
Which is not in
Which is
other
not.
rounds. No, just this.
In terms of like,
And it has to be laid out that way.
So oh, sorry, Bonnie.
I just want to,
I was just looking, it's the 30th of January.
Is the epic.
Yes. Thanks. Well, that's fine.
January 30th.
Yeah.
What did I do, Bonnie?
No, I was just looking at the responsibilities of the departments. So I see in the Public Works bill containment. So I know that you were mentioning about fire, perhaps volunteer firemen and Parks and Environment staff receiving training, but public works staff, that's in their purview. Also, I don't know if it's worth stating about like the works. Because Public Works probably has a better idea of what weight, et cetera, can go onto our works. So I don't know, it says building security, garbage debris management. I don't know if you want to mention something about works in there under Public Works as well.
Okay.
What page are you on?
Oh, yeah, I'm on
32.
page 32, yeah.
And so their purview is work maintenance.
Yeah,
Maintenance?
structural maintenance, yeah.
And spill response. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, because I do want Bob's input, and hopefully I can pin him down for that. Okay, so if I asked for comments on the part of the HRD that you have by a week from now, is that enough time for everybody to
Yes.
read these 35 pages? So by next Wednesday at 4:30, if I haven't heard from you, you are supportive of this. So can we get a motion, something that says that in a motion? But better?
We can do an action item.
Okay.
Yeah. I'll hold it and we all agree. So it's Wednesday, the,
13th.
Wednesday, December 13th by 4:30 PM.
Email you, Jen?
Yes, please.
And it's all here, so if we keep this written copy, we can read this.
It's all there except for the final section.
And are you gonna send that out? Is that for next week as well, or that's for?
Good God, no.
follow-up? But for next week, if we read this.
It's
for
all
next
there.
week,
Yes,
it's all-
sorry, I understand what you're saying.
No, no, no.
Everything to then looked at by next week is in the agenda.
It's in here.
So then you'll do the next section maybe early January, or,
Yeah,
and then if we have a meeting the first or second week of January, you can do the resolution then.
that sounds great.
Okay.
So our meeting is supposed to be Wednesday, January 3rd. Can I kind of get an indication? So I know Steph won't be here. Can I get an indication of who? Oh yeah, don't want to be here? Okay, good.
I can be, but I,
I won't be here.
Okay, everyone's bailing, sounds good. So.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
You're off that
So
week.
Carolyn's away the 17th. What about everyone else? Wednesday, the 17th of January. I'm away the next week.
I'm here.
Are you going to Costa Rica?
That would be no, Big White.
Oh.
Disgusting.
We'll discuss. Costa Rica's a little later?
Yeah, March.
Okay, I knew it was coming soon.
So would everyone, just roughly, I'm not expecting a full commitment right now, but other than Carolyn, be around on the 17th of January? Okay. On that day, we will have a meeting and we will approve what's here, as well as the final section, which I will get to you before the deadline. So I think Steph sends out the agenda the Friday before the meeting, which is 5 days before. I'll try and have it earlier so that you have more time to review the final section, because that will be included in that agenda. And at that meeting, we will be making a recommendation to endorse it because it has to go to the other committee, in my mind, on the 30th of January. Everyone feel okay with that?
So that meeting that we've got scheduled for the 3rd is now canceled?
We're gonna reschedule that for the
Okay.
17th.
1 to 3.
Is it scheduled though? Didn't schedule one.
It's in my calendar.
It's in my.
So
recurring.
it was,
Yeah.
but it should have just been for 2017.
Oh.
We do in January, we clock everything.
It's here, but
Oh.
you put it in.
January 3rd, 2018, 1
It's
o'clock.
your name on it.
It's January 1st, 9 a.m.
So we're gonna fix that.
So we'll move that one to Wednesday. Okay, great. And at that point, we will hopefully be able to recommend this gets sent on to the emergency committee. Once we're done with this guy, we move on to the emergency management plan, which hopefully will be more interesting for everyone. Because, yeah, we need to update that in 2018. Okay, so, good times. So I think we'll just leave 5.2. Does anyone have anything else they want to say about the HRBA? Anything else? On to new business. So 6.1, if you look at page 35 of your agenda, these are the responsibilities of our committee. One of them is the seat, evaluating the progress of the emergency program annually. So I just wanted to sort of get a sense of how people think that we can best do that. Obviously, there are different ways of evaluating our progress. It could be a simple report that I write and we adopt and send on to the EPIC, the executive committee. Or, you know, it can get more colorful. There are tools online. Did I link it in this agenda? No. So the province of BC has a community emergency program assessment tool. And it's kind of a clunky looking thing, but it's a good way of sort of looking at what we could be doing that we're not. And whether or not we think it's necessary is obviously up for discussion, but that's one way that we could evaluate sort of the progress of the program. And I guess I'm just looking for suggestions if anyone has any ideas or ways that they'd like to go about this. Are we comfortable using that tool? If so, I can show it to you guys in January. We can look at it more closely.
Were there goals set at the beginning? This committee's only been around this year, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, one way would be to set goals at the beginning of the year and then at the end of the year evaluate if those goals were met. And yeah, I don't know, like, I'm just throwing ideas out there. Is like, that seems like one easy way to do it.
I spoke to Kathy because D, you'll see, is developing a strategic plan. So obviously that's exactly what you're talking about. That would be what we measure our progress against. And she was sort of under the impression that that would more be done at the executive level. Obviously, they do determine the strategic direction of the program, so why we're doing strategic planning as well, I'm not entirely certain. She sort of thinks that that's something we should take out of the bylaw when it's amended. So it's more that they set our goals, our direction, and we implement. But I don't disagree that goals are a good thing to have. You know, the HRBA and emergency management plan, I'd say, were sort of my goals for this year, and have not happened at the rate that I would like them to. So maybe that is a good idea.
Yeah, so what we could do perhaps in January is just set, like, or at the first meeting of the year is just set like a work plan for the year, and then at the end of the year, just report back on what was completed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is it, or is,
Progress.
what's the big meeting that's happening in January, the executive committee? Will that have an impact? Because will they have, like, I'm just wondering if maybe it's the meeting following that meeting. Do you know what I mean? Like, maybe not our first meeting, but if they're having a big one at the end of January, are they going to be saying, okay, great, this is what you did last year, here's what we want for this year, and then our next meeting, we can say, okay, here's what's reasonable to achieve.
And I think that group, like us, is Norman and Stormin. They're still figuring out how they operate and how they work. So that's actually a good idea, is that I bring this to their attention and say, is there something that we should be working with you on? Maybe we'll find out.
And are we going to be talking at our January meeting about like recommendations, or have you already made, like, do we have any input up to them for them to then consider and then make decisions and then pass back to us?
Absolutely.
It might actually be helpful for them as a framework if we came up with some sort of loose, because they might not be aware of our like the resources that we have available in terms of time and stuff like that. So if we maybe gave them something to work with and say, okay, this is what we think maybe we should be working on this year. What do you think? Do you have any suggestions, or do you have other goals in mind?
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. This is what we'd like to do. Can we?
Yeah. And then if not, then what else? Like, you know.
And so, you know, things that come to mind right away are exercising, because both Ian and Paulo have wanted that all year and it hasn't happened. So some sort of exercise, even if it's small scale. And the evacuation plan, which I realize I've been harping on about, but I think that there's a lot of public sort of expectation around that. And then, yeah, maybe it should be sort of a brainstorming session about what we as a group can agree on wanting to do for 2018, and we can send that to them, and if they agree, great, and if not, it can be more of a discussion. So again, that tool might be useful for us to sort of go through.
And what's the two?
Community Emergency Program Assessment Tool, but the acronym is like CEPR.
So the one that you have done is for you? Okay.
I can send you a link. Yeah, so again, that's good, just if we sort of don't know what we're missing, it's helpful. And we could maybe go through that as a group to sort of set that draft that you're referring to. So how does everyone feel about that?
So that would be the January meeting?
I guess so. So that one we will actually take the full 2 hours, kind of sounds. Sorry. But today, you can all go early. Okay, so we'll leave that new business, I guess, as a agenda item for January and turn it into sort of more of a discussion workshop. I hate to keep using that word, discussion. Everyone okay with that? And then, last but not least, let's just quickly go through these action items.
So that's actually one of the action items. Create an EPMC work plan. Who? The EPMC.
Perfect, right, well, that's happening in January. Love it. What else is ongoing? Look into replacing the outdated field hospital kit. Sherry, bless her, has actually been working on that. She's contacted the Public Health Agency of Canada, who have said that eventually they'll come pick it up, but I didn't see anything about a replacement, so we may be getting rid of it and not getting anything in return. I'm waiting to hear more from Sherry on that. Oh, another ambulance-related news. It sounds like council approved a new, what do you call it, ramp down to the dock that the paramedics use. So they're getting a brand new ramp that can accommodate their new stretchers, which have wider wheels, and also address some of their safety concerns. So that's exciting. Look for a shiny new ramp down there. Okay, this item about the Quake Cottage, I think, is related to the one below it, about sort of a public outreach and education plan. And that can be something that we talk about in January. You know, how many events do we want to be at? What is our goal of being there? And that sort of thing. So I think that's also going to be discussed in January. And then rapid damage assessment, Robin, it sounds like you and I should have a talk about that. Exactly what, you know, can this committee do, and what sort of funding is required, and all that. So I might just add your name to that and try and set up a meeting with you after Christmas. I think at this rate. Sure. Sounds like you're really busy.
Yeah.
But we'll leave it on there so that one day we can discuss it at length. I agree that that we need to think about how we would assess buildings and who would be doing it. And again, that's part of that staff plan. You know, if I'm driving to the EOC from my house, I should be taking pictures of what I'm seeing along the way, so that that information can be quickly incorporated into our response. So, yeah, it's important. Maybe staff response plan should be on the work plan for 2018. Just throwing that out there. Okay, does anyone have anything that I missed? Want to add any more to the action items review?
Well, other can of worms. I was just wondering where we're at with the helicopter, the air ambulance
Good question.
situation.
Yeah, that's actually on my list of things to discuss with Kathy, because I've really had trouble getting a hold of the Director of Aviation for BC Ambulance. He and I are corresponding for ages about this. So what I understand, BC Ambulance, or Helijet, is implementing night vision goggles for use in their helicopters. My limited understanding of helicopter landings indicates that that should address our problem. So the issue with landing on Bowen at night at the golf course was one of a black hole. So it's something that can be solved with night vision goggles, from what I understand. So I was looking for confirmation from BC Ambulance about this when I heard the public announcement about the night vision goggles. I've tried numerous times to contact the Director of Aviation and ask what the implications of that are for Bowen, because my understanding is that we have to change nothing, and as soon as they're trained with those night vision goggles, they can land on Bowen again at night. and I haven't heard back. I emailed him repeatedly. And then recently discovered that his job is posted online. So wondering if maybe there's been some sort of changeover there, or if, I'm not sure. So Kathy and I were going to discuss sort of how to keep on BC Emergency Health Services about this, because it's sort of just fallen off the side of the desk. I can't get anything back from them, and I think it's solved, but I haven't got confirmation about that. And my understanding is that I think like early 2018, the night vision capabilities will be implemented. So hopefully we get that back, and I'm waiting for confirmation on that.
So I'll have to talk, because I did get some information. Yes, it's secondhand, but it's somebody that knows Helajat, and
Great.
it's not great news.
Oh, okay.
So I just wanted to know if you'd heard the same thing.
No, so my understanding is perhaps incorrect.
I don't know, but I think just the night goggles, my source said that that's not going to do it, or there still has to be an adequate landing site, and they don't feel that there is one on Bowen. That was what Helajat had said.
It doesn't make sense because they'll land there during the day.
Yeah.
So it's either adequate or it isn't. It can't be not
And
adequate.
the
I don't want to get into it with you.
Yeah,
but
but the source of my information is fairly reliable. I just,
Yeah.
it's just that it's sort of been this way all the way along. It's hard to get
Okay.
fed the information. It
Oh.
seems it's so hard, and yet, yeah, you would think that something as serious as
Yeah.
that, someone's life, yeah, just doesn't seem to have a high priority.
I'll put it on the action items so that it's
Not on your.
No, yes, on mine, so that every month it sort of comes up, and you know, if Cherie's here, we can ask her. If not, hopefully I'll have spoken to Kathy, or maybe I can find out who. I'll
It's
just
so
keep on
hard
it.
to get, yeah, the
I-
answers, right, as you say.
I got a bit frustrated and sort of threw my hands up, but I shouldn't.
Regarding that, when you talk to Cherie, she should let all her paramedics know on, when they come to the station, that we don't have night landing. Because that night of the accident with the truck in there, they automatically called for auto launch. And so we got a call from our dispatch saying they're gonna land at the school. So I had to phone them direct and say, no, they're not landing at night. And so they were under the assumption that they could still fly at night.
Okay.
So the paramedics are calling for it, thinking it's coming, and it
Okay.
wasn't, so
I'll email
our dispatch had
Cherie.
to get a hold of them.
I'll email Cherie today and ask her if she could maybe spread that word a little bit throughout. But also BCAS dispatch should know that, so when someone says I need the auto launch, they say, no, it's not possible at night, rather than it go any further. So that's, to me, even beyond Cherie's control, but I'll pass it on and she can figure it out.
Because I remember when council was at the UBCM in October meeting, that they met with the provincial
Minister of Health.
Minister of Health. And the contract for Helajat is coming up, or very soon, I think. And sort of, I guess the talk was, well, really shouldn't that be a contract deal breaker if you're not, if you can't land? So I don't.
Personal opinion is that that's what changed it, because other helicopter contracts held by BCM, most of the other companies have night vision goggles. We're one of the few communities that isn't serviced by a helicopter company that has night vision goggles. So, yeah, I would think that would have been a contractual issue. But what do I know about the inner workings of BCM? Yeah, that I didn't feel like that UBCM was very fruitful. They were all alarmed at the poor lack of communication, but it didn't go much further than that. Okay, that's good. It's back on my radar. I'll work on that. Anyone else? Anything to add to the action items? Okay. Thank you everyone for coming. Thank you. This hour and a half out of your day. I really appreciate your help.
Thanks, Jen.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen.
Thanks for being here. Yeah, I think we got a lot done this year.
Yeah, we should acknowledge that there's a lot that's happening in White and a lot of progress.
Thanks,
Yeah.
I agree. And I'll hear back from all of you by Wednesday. Or not. Or not.
Ian, do you have a few minutes to sit for chat, or are you on your way?
I've got to be on the 3 vote for meeting in town,
Oh, okay.
so